Hi, I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. Today I am going through some of my supers that I extracted honey from in July, maybe even early August, and they've now been empty for over a month. We're now, the 14th of September. So these have been empty for 5 weeks to 6 weeks or so, and of course it's summertime. And I don't have a big walk-in freezer that I can store things in, and so these supers have been left. I had as many honey supers as I could put on my hives already, and the bees are keeping them clean and free of pests and stuff, but now I'm taking everything off, and these supers have been attracting things like wax moths, and so I have to get into these. I was hoping it wouldn't they wouldn't descend on me quite so early. Last year I started to have some wax moth issues by October, but here we are early September and I'm seeing quite a few. I had more supers on for longer last year, but this year I've been taking them off. And make sure you keep an eye on your supers, otherwise you're going to lose them, especially if they're supers that have contained brood at some point. Wax moths love brood. Just to tell you a bit the life cycle, basically, wax moth, just like any other butterfly or most insects, they're going to lay their egg somewhere. That egg will be tolerant to various different conditions. Wax moths will do it all year round if they can do, and it's warm enough. The larvae will then eat through wax and the combs. Even on plastic foundation, they'll eat up the comb. And in particular, they love combs that have contained brood and or pollen that has been stored in there. So what I want to do is show you what some of these frames start to look like when they've been having wax moths in there for a little while. Now, I've got relatively few that are damaged, but they are growing and growing very, very quickly. So if I can show you here, I'll turn this light a little this way. You can start to see little trails going through here. This is not a bad one at all. There's only 1 or 2 larvae in there. You can see where one has been going up along here. So that's nothing. That's will become a problem if we don't deal with it. But here's much more significant issues here. And so we've got lots of webbing and that sort of thing in here. Let's see if I can, if you pull it out, you may actually start to find the larvae. Here's a wax moth itself, look. Little bag. Okay, so and this is an area that we've got some pollen and that sort of thing in, all this dust and stuff. The the wax moths are getting in there. They're doing some damage. This is a more significant damage, and they like to be somewhere in the dark. So look at the webbing issues and that sort of thing here. There's some dead bees in here. So basically what was here, there may have been some old brood in here, and the wax moths, and for that matter hive beetles, will go with this brood, with this pollen and that sort of thing. So check your combs for pests, and you'll see little cocoons, that sort of stuff. And so what are we going to do about it? So dark combs like this are particularly at risk. Combs that have just had honey in are less so. This side's less at risk than this side with pollen in it. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do is worked very well for me last year. I use this product I got from Better Bee. It's called Moth 3, or in other words, it's a bacillus, a bacterium, B402. And this I used very successfully last year. You mix it with water in a ratio of 1 to 20. So this will do 20 times its volume of spray. And basically you mix that spray up. And so here's 2 ounces of bacillus and 38 ounces of water, and you put it into a spray bottle. And the spray bottle you then start to apply. Now what you'll want to do is use protective gear. You want to have a face covering, preferably long sleeves, and eye covering, because you can develop an allergy to the bacteria. And the larva, I suppose I should go back to what this is. This bacillus is a larvicide. Basically it kills larvae, but it's specific to wax moth larvae. It will not harm bee larvae. And I've proved that to myself very successfully this year. My bees grew very nicely, having been sprayed with this stuff last year. So you spray the combs, let them dry, and then this bacillus is basically there so that if a larvae starts to eat the comb, an egg is laid, it emerges, it starts to eat the comb, the larva gets sick and dies. Hence no more damage. And fewer adult moths to lay more eggs. You're not going to be able to stop wax moths finding your comb. I've done things like wrapping them in plastic bags. They eat through the bag and get in there. What you want to do is be able to freeze them hard during the winter. But the problem is, if you have to have your supers unprotected because they're not in a hive, and the freezing conditions aren't going to be for another month or 2 yet, this is prime time for moths to take advantage of your combs. So really important to check your combs and do something about it if they're being eaten. If you've got a bit of damage like you've seen that I've just shown you, the bees will be able to repair that fine. But if left unchecked, that comb will be totally disintegrated within a matter of weeks, maybe months. Depends how many eggs were laid on the frame. So you can lose your entire set of combs if you don't take this precaution. So what I'll do is spray them, I'll then dry them, and that should protect them from now until the frost. Then it gets really cold here in Maine. I'm going to keep them in an outbuilding where it's not protected from the cold, so it's going to get down to -5, -10, -20 Fahrenheit, which will kill any eggs or larvae that are there. Come springtime, I've got to watch out because moths come up from various areas. They've overwintered somewhere, and those wax moths can start laying eggs again in the spring. But I tend to use up my combs pretty quickly in the spring. But that bacillus will still be viable on those combs through the winter and into the spring. I'm not sure to what extent freezing might affect that bacillus over winter. I do not know. But from what I found, I didn't have any wax moth issues with any of my combs that I didn't use even up until July. So I suspect it keeps on working for quite some time, even though it's been through a freezing winter. So get on some protective gear. Don't breathe in the fumes so that you don't develop, not the fumes. The spray will be airborne. You don't want to breathe in that because it's sort of like getting bee stings. Occasionally, if you are exposed to organic matter in the air like that for a while, you may develop an allergy to it and then suffer an allergic reaction to it when you're exposed to it sometime in the future. So take suitable precautions and spray your combs. I will sleep better at night knowing that I'm not losing more combs to wax moth. I know this area. Oh, this is horrible. Look at that. Wax moths. Ooh, that one's just about had it now. That's about the worst I've seen. Look at all this webbing. All this comb is shot. So they've been burrowing right down next to the comb, to the foundation. And this is only in a few weeks, really. Oh, look at this this larva here. It's a big bugger. I've got two species, the larger ones and the smaller ones. Look at that. Bloody wax moths. They'll do a lot of damage to your combs. Ugh. Okay, time to get spraying. This is just the dust from one super. And look at all these little larvae. 1, 2, 3. All these are wax moth larvae that have just dropped out of that comb. There are thousands of them in the combs. I've got to get them sprayed, otherwise they are not going to exist in another few weeks. So shake it out. You see trails under your combs, you've probably got wax moth issues. So get spraying or freezing. If you're dealing with small quantities of combs at a time, then you can take them, bag them up and stick them in the freezer. Basically that'll protect them for now. If you freeze them hard, freeze them for 2 or 3 days, and you'll probably postpone any further damage. So protect your combs, whether you're using chemicals, bacteria, or freezing. It's really important to start protecting your combs, because these later and later winters we're getting are giving us new problems that we may not have faced a while ago. I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. See you next time.